Um, I don't know. I never know, do I? That's kind of a problem that I have. I never know what I'm going to talk about. I think part of it is because if I try to think of a topic to talk about, like my mind doesn't want to. My mind's like it's not fair to do that. It's not right to do that. It's not right to think about a topic to talk about before you start talking about it. And whenever I actually do think about a topic to talk about before I start talking about it, it always comes out awkward and weird because I always think like an editor. I think like, okay, well, I have to say this about it, I have to say this about it, but how do I introduce it in a way that's really interesting? And how do I, all the stuff that's not going to help you when you're going live. And the whole idea of this podcast is to get better at doing things live. So I have to kind of learn how to speak off the cuff, learn how to explain things on the spot. And that's part of the reason why I'm doing that. So maybe perhaps from now on, I'm not certain about this. I'm not certain about this, but perhaps from now on I might just start recording and just start speaking, start rambling, and find out what comes out of my mouth. Because usually something does come out of my mouth, whether it's good or interesting or not. That's like up for debate, but usually something does come out of my mouth, whether I like it to or not. And nothing's gonna come out of my mouth yet. I don't have anything like. There's never anything to say, and I've been thinking about Digibro lately. Digibro is a content creator on YouTube. He's a guy that I started following way back in 2014, I think. He was a My Little Pony Friendship is Magic episode review guy at first. But then eventually he got bored of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic and he went off to become an anime analysis guy who made anime analysis videos. And I kind of followed him because he was the only one of all of the pony reviewers who actually, spoke with honesty about, like, wasn't like painting the world with like this glassy gauze over it. And he was trying to do something different and interesting with his channel. Like when he found out that like his videos were all the same, like he found out immediately after doing a bunch of episodes that what he would have to say about one episode would be the same thing with another episode. And so he decided to go in a completely different direction and just kind of like connect each episode. Like this was later after he made a bunch of episodes, but he decided to go in a different direction and connect each episode into its own, and like into like a personal life story of his. So if it was an episode about some like there was an episode of My Little Pony about like a remedy, a magical cure, some kind of like, like in the 1800s, those flim flam, whatever, these stupid cures that doesn't actually cure anybody. It's just like a placebo effect kind of thing. Snake oil, that kind of stuff. There was an episode about that, and he kind of connected that with his with like how his dad had read a book called The Secret that was about like how you're supposed to be, if you emotionally set yourself up for something, then the world will give it to you. That whole Eastern philosophy, which I kind of I believe in it to a certain degree. That yeah, if you aim in the right direction and you do have a goal, then it's easier to go after something that you want. And if you tell the world what you want, then like someone's bound to hear it. But but he connected to the story about that to that. And he did that for every episode. He connected to some story about his life. There was an episode of My Little Pony where they were going to like some kind of convention and they were just swapping items and collecting, and like the end result of it was that Twilight Sparkle, who was one of the main characters of the show, ended up keeping a bunch of her books that she was going to sell, but she just ended up keeping them instead. And he kind of made the connection with that by saying that like his mom was always kind of a hoarder. Like she would just keep things for no reason. And she was a hoarder up until she saw the show Hoarders, and then she tried to strive away from doing that. And so like it was interesting. That's why I followed him. I followed him because he was interesting and he was doing something different, and it seemed like he had a head on his shoulders, and he was really good at talking off the cuff too. He had a separate channel where he just sort of did these podcasts. One of the podcasts was one where he was doing an episode by episode kind of review / analysis / whatever of Neon Genesis Evangelion, where you would have a different guest every time and he would just sort of talk about the episode and the things that he knew about it, and just he's really, really good at talking. He's really, really good at opening his mouth and saying something interesting, or saying something that's at least not boring. And oftentimes it's interesting. And that's like his biggest talent. He can open his mouth and he can never shut up. He can just keep talking forever. And that's a really good talent to have if you're trying to do YouTube. So, like, I followed him for a while, and he did the pony stuff for a while, like I was saying, and then he moved on to anime. And when he moved on to anime, what was really interesting about that was all of his audience, practically all of his audience, like, before he had like about 70,000 subscribers at this point. Before, when he would make a pony review video, he'd get at least like 50,000 views on each of those. But then, when he started making these anime analysis videos, that like dropped to like 1,000 views per video. Like, and he was trying to make money. He made this into his job immediately. Like, it's interesting. He's kind of the kind of person who would just like decide to do this kind of stuff. Like, I'm going to make it my job. If it's possible to make videos on YouTube and make money doing that, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to quit my job at Target or whatever. I'm just going to do that. And he found out a way. He found a way to do it. He created a Patreon account, and back when Patreon was a new thing and like people could still get into it and you could still get patrons. I mean, you still can now, but it's a lot harder. But he made a Patreon account and he made YouTube videos. He tried to do ad revenue. He did a bunch of stuff. And anyways, the views on his videos went way, 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 way down to like 1,000 views per video when they used to be 50,000 views. And it was disturbing to see, even from my perspective, just like such a drop. Like, no one was actually interested in him as a person. They were just interested in his pony reviews, in My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. And so he kept on making reviews, and eventually he gained even more followers than he had when he was doing My Little Pony reviews. So it was a very interesting story, and it was an interesting thing to follow over the course of his growth and the growth in his channel. And he met up with a bunch of people in the midst of this, and they kind of formed a group called the PCP, that stands for the Procrastinators, and they have a podcast, and there are a bunch of different YouTubers who do this kind of thing, who make YouTube videos. And yeah, it was interesting. I found him very interesting to watch. And I still find him kind of interesting to watch, but at the same time, I feel like he doesn't inspire me to make anything. Like, when I was watching him as if, like, I could do that. I could do the things that he was doing pretty easily. Like, I could make an analysis video that good. It's not that hard. Like, the videos he made were not necessarily great. I would say they were interesting, and he chose an interesting direction, and that's kind of what made them good and what made them stand out. Like, he has always kind of had the stance of just try to give, like, your own perspective. Try to say something that only you can say, that only you as a person can say personally. Try not to say something that everybody else would say already. And so that's always been what he's tried to do. And so his content's always been interesting. But it's also always been kind of mediocre. Like, his anime analysis videos have always been, I don't know, something about the way that he writes is just boring to listen to. But not boring enough to not listen to it. He's good enough for you to pay attention, but not, like, good enough for you to get inspired and want to make awesome videos, you know? At least not for me. Like, I always saw him as kind of an equal. Like, I can do exactly what he can do. I said that already, but I'm saying it again to emphasize the point. And so, lately, he's been making more and more content. He calls himself the, what is it? I forget. Oh, man. A content machine, something like that. I forget. There was like a specific wording that he used that was great. But he calls himself that because he can make hours and hours of content a day, because that's all he does. That's what his job is, to make content. He makes hours of podcasts, hours of whatever, random videos. And he made, like, in like a week or so, he made a year's worth of videos, a year's worth of, like, podcast kind of content, like videos that are like 10 to 15 minutes each, one for every single day. He just made that over a few weeks, and now he's releasing them. So he's really, really good at making lots and lots of content, and his content is not boring, but it's not quite great. Like, it's decent, it's good. And so it's really good kind of content to listen to while you're doing nothing. But once again, he doesn't inspire me. So I kind of made a decision to stop following him, or stop following most of his stuff. Like, I listen to some of his stuff still a little bit because he's kind of interesting still. And he's always trying to improve. That's another thing. Like, he's always trying to be with the times. I think he called himself a 20th century. He tries to stay with the times with technology and with the way that YouTube is going, the way that YouTube works, the way that the internet works, and he's always commenting on it, and he's pretty good at explaining things. Like, he's really good at explaining something, and that's his talent too. He's really good at explaining things, but he's not very good at making amazing videos. He's good at making mediocre to decent to okay videos, and so that's why I stopped following him. At least I stopped following his main channel. His other channel, where he just talks, is better. I think that he's better at talking than he is at writing. His writing always sounds kind of weird. But whenever he just talks off the cuff about something, he can get all the points down immediately, and it just I guess he kind of has a confidence to what he's saying that's very catchable. I can't even think of words right now. It's very whatever, I don't know. But yeah, he's an interesting content creator, and I stopped following him. That was the point of this entire podcast. That was the point of this entire episode. Is there anything else I have to say about him? Maybe I'll say some more on the next episode. Who knows? We'll see. But this has been the Kokino Podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this. I think this one came out a little bit better than the one before, so hopefully I'll be able to do better. Yes, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get better at this. Got to get better at talking off the cuff, because that's something I'm not good at. Something that Digibro is good at. I need to get good at it so I can make tons of YouTube content, because YouTube cares a lot less about the quality of the content and a lot more about the quantity of the content right now. And maybe that's going to change. I'm always interested in making quality videos. Like, I want to make there's a bunch of videos that I want to make about anime, even though like that's been done to death. I still want to make some. I want to make a video about Whisper of the Heart, which is a Studio Ghibli movie that I discovered before it came out in America, because I had been sent a copy of, like, my parents ordered me like a Studio Ghibli box set, and for some reason the guy who shipped the wrong set. It was actually the Japanese version of the Studio Ghibli box set, which had more of the movies that hadn't yet been released in the US, and so I got to see it way earlier than most people, and it immediately struck an emotional chord with me right at the first few frames, because the song that came on was Country Roads, and so like I have like a bunch. I want to share all that I can about that, and I want to make it so that people want to watch it. I want to make a video encouraging people to watch Whisper of the Heart, because it's one of my favorite Ghibli movies. One of my favorite movies, period, animated. I really like it, but when I work on one of those kinds of videos, it's really hard to do it. It's really hard because I want to make it good. I want it to be good enough that I would watch that video on YouTube and not know about Whisper of the Heart, and then all of a sudden I would want to watch it because I saw that video. I think that, and yeah, any of the kind of analysis kind of videos or the kind of review videos or whatever, I want to try to put as much effort as I can into making them good. I'm also working on YouTube poops. YouTube poops are those things. Yeah. This is YouTube. I don't have to explain what YouTube poops are. Everybody knows what they are. Whoever's listening to this podcast has obviously been on YouTube for a long time, because I don't know who else would listen to this podcast for... I don't even know if this podcast is going to go anywhere. I haven't even uploaded any episodes of this podcast. I'm not even sure if I'm going to upload any episodes of this podcast. My words aren't even coming out right. But anyways, yeah, I have a lot of projects in mind, including the webcomic, including all the stuff that I mentioned in the first episode of this podcast, but it's very hard to work on it because I want it to be good. I want it to be good. I want the quality to be good. I don't want it to be like a Digibro video, because Digibro videos bore me. Like, Digibro makes okay analysis videos, and I don't like that. I want to make something good. And, yeah, I guess that's all I have to say. So this has been the Kokino Podcast. I hope you all have a good time with your life. I hope you all start making stuff, because making stuff is fun, and everybody should do it at least once. Make a Let's Play, make a drawing, write a book, write some poetry, I don't know, write a song, play something, I don't know, invent a board game, do something. Do something with your life. Go start a company, build a foundation for charity. I don't know, just do something amazing. That's what I want you to do. That's what I want you to take away from this podcast. Do something amazing. That's the best thing you could ever do. All right, this is the end.